and welcome back to Four Corners of the Galley. I'm your host PBO, and you're joining me on another edition of Atlanta Robbin season. We're up to episode 6, Teddy Perkins. So, let's kick this sucker right off. Now, before I start my recap review of Mr. Teddy Perkins, episode 6, I kind of wanted to give you my theory and idea of how I feel like these last 3 episodes and the next episode is going to be about. So, Helen, Barbershop, Teddy Perkins, and next week Champagne Poppy. Champagne Poppy, I believe, are all actual, their individual characters' nightmares that they're living in reality. So the first episode is about Ern and Van, but it's Ern's nightmare. He starts off on this great adventure that he's going to go with Van on a weekend away, and they're going to have fun on this thing, and it ends up turning all bad on him, and everything goes against him. He's in some place where he feels uncomfortable and weird. He's not used to it. He doesn't like it. He's out of his place, and what ends up happening at the end, he ends up losing his rock, his steady, the thing that keeps him grounded and where he needs to be, and they end up breaking up at the end, and all of his stuff goes to hell. Last week's episode in the barbershop, you got Mr. Paperboi on an adventure with his boy Bibby trying to get his hair cut, and the whole time he's doing everything for this dude. So basically, it's Paperboi trying to look good for his appearance because his appearance matters to him and the way he looks and it's clean, fresh. And it starts off he's going to get a haircut, but he ends up going beyond extents because some things are always trying to be pulled at Paperboi, and that's what happens in this one. He's getting pulled at, and he's always having to do for others when he's just trying to get his haircut and be fresh for the day. So I feel like these are all a bunch of sets. And then you got this episode, Teddy Perkins, which we'll get into, but this is Darius, and Darius is a unique and spiritual individual who goes deep, and he's obviously a horror lover, and I think it's got a little bit of Shining mixed with some Michael Jackson overtones and then some abusive father, so it's got some deeper issues that it really goes into. And next week, Champagne Poppy, based on the trailer, Van's going out with her girls for a girls' night, and they end up in some van and end up at some party where they become the entertainment for the night. So that's kind of like human trafficking, just trying to have a fun time, newly single, but ends up going to some party where she becomes the entertainment that she wasn't looking for. That's just my theory. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. That's what I think. All right, let's kick this episode off. All right, so this starts off, and we're at a hardware store, and you meet this guy, and Darius is picking up some supplies. He's there picking up supplies. You have no idea what he's picking up. He's picking up some supplies. He asks the guy basically if they got any dried fruit. He's like mango and asking for this craziness. He sees nah. He's like, nah, man, I ain't got that. So he sees his hat next to him, and it's a Southern-made trucker hat, and kind of gives it this eye. He's like, let me get that. How much is that? And he tells him like $10. Grabs a marker with it, and he starts screwing it and he throws it back on, and it's got the "you mad" hat. So I love the way that he's already trying to shift things in his perspective and change and alter things. And when you come to find out that he's about to go on this adventure because he's got this U-Haul truck and he's on his way to pick up something. You have no idea what he's doing, where he's going, or what he's going for, but he's got a giant map and he's got a U-Haul. So he's on an adventure to go pick up something. So we're about to go on this fun ride with Darius. So he rolls up to this big old giant gate, and he just kind of rings a buzzer and goes, I'm here for the pickup. And without even blinking, the gate just buzzes open. He's like, all right. So he pulls up, and it's a giant mansion in the middle of Georgia. We have no idea where it's at, and I like that it's just kind of like a secluded location. Gives you that big-time Shining feel and Get Out. I feel like it's really mirroring like the Get Out, which he's obviously in, and then in the Shining, kind of like this big, old, creepy mansion it's old, it's got weird things to it, and weird things are going and happening inside, and that's kind of the vibe I get from this whole episode. So he gets there, and the door just kind of opens by himself, and he goes, hello, and out of the shadows is, whoo! I mean, for guest stars this year on Robbin season, every episode is one-up in itself on the people they bring in to play off these actors. I mean, the talent that they are bringing and the individuals and the differences are just amazing. I love the way they pick it. So we get to meet Theodore Perkins, and he says, just call me Teddy. And he's real pasty looking, has that Michael Jackson kind of vibe, and he's got kind of like the high-pitched voice, and he introduces himself, and Darius is just kind of thrown back a little bit, and he's like, and he goes, oh, I hear the music you're playing. He goes, yeah, Stevie. He goes, oh, yeah, Stevie. I love Stevie. And then kind of have this little Stevie Wonder conversation. Darius introduces him and says, oh, okay, yeah, sorry. And he introduces her, and then he kind of gives this weird, like, double hand straight out kind of like handshake where you can see that he is very awkward around other people, and it's very hard for him to interact or just have normal conversations with other people. He seems very isolated, insulated in this house. It's very dark, and he also is very weird and doesn't know what to do with himself. So they walk into this room, and he offers Darius a drink. So at this point, as I'm watching, the whole time I'm thinking to myself is, I wouldn't drink or eat anything this man offering me, and yet Darius is very content on getting this glass of water. So he asks for a glass of water, and Teddy kind of leans over and talks into a box and says, get Darius a glass of water. You kind of think he's speaking to someone. That's the assumption I got too. They kind of sit down, and they're looking at this giant egg sitting there on the table, and he's just like, what the heck? And he's like, oh, it's a soft-boiled ostrich egg. It's called the owl's trap. And he's like, okay. He goes, owl's casket, sorry. And he starts to crack away at it. And he starts cracking away at it. And he cracks the thing open. And then he starts digging around it. If this episode's one thing is the ability to make you feel awkward every single time. And I think that's what they were going for. It has that shining get out where Darius feels awkward every single time he's in a scene. Every situation is awkward, and he actually looks like the normal one for once in this whole thing. And I think that's just kind of a great flip and reverse of the whole thing. So Teddy starts eating this ostrich egg, and Darius getting all sick, and all of it's going bad. And they start talking about the piano, and he goes, oh, and then he just kind of leaves. Teddy just leaves. So Darius is left in this room, and he's sitting next to the egg. He's like, I don't know what I can do. He gets up, and he starts wandering. Of course, the worst thing you want to do in a big old giant empty mansion in the middle of nowhere with some weirdo is start looking around and looking for stuff. So he ends up in the library looking at some books, and at the same time, you get a glimpse that there's actual video cameras everywhere, and everything is being recorded. So it kind of gives you this creepy feel now that they're being watched, and you really don't know who's watching or what the heck or who's even in this place. So it's got all kinds of awkward and creepy horror vibes. He gets a book and sneezes on it and puts it down, and then kind of just awkwardly walks into the hallway, and he's kind of looking, and then he can hear the sound of the piano playing. So obviously, like any individual in any horror movie, the minute they start hearing sound or something, they go directly towards it. This man should have got out the house. He should have took the advice from himself and got out. But, that's besides the point. So he's walking down this hallway, and he's, getting there, and he gets to the door, and right when he's about to open it, boom, Teddy just kind of pops out and startles him real bad, and he's like, oh, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I was just kind of, waiting for my water. Oh, and then he starts going over water again and asking if he wants bottle or whatever, and he kind of gets a glimpse inside of the room, and you could see the piano and you could see the chair, but you don't see anything else. And he's like, oh, I'll meet you downstairs in a little while. Just, I'll be back with your water. And he's like, oh, okay. So he kind of goes away. So now he clicks away, and now Darius does the smartest thing he's done the whole entire time he's there. He calls Paperboi. So they have this great dialogue back and forth, and they're talking about this awkward situation, and Paperboi is being his Rob to the dude's Chris's from Get Out, and basically tell him, get out, man. He's like, get out of there. It ain't worth it. Darius got this crazy idea about he'll have two regrets, and one of the regrets is getting himself a free piano, and he can't let it go. So he's convinced himself that he's in it to win it, and he's got to get this piano because it's multicolored and he needs it. It's free. He's taking this whole journey and he wants to get it. So he's on this mission to get it. Paperboy's trying to convince him, and then they start getting this conversation and talking about Teddy, and he's like, so what does he look like? And they bring up Sammy Sosa, and this is like one of the funniest things in the world. Because I don't know if you know, but I'm a huge baseball fan, and Sammy Sosa was a great player. Then out of nowhere, once he retired, he started bleaching his skin, and he just looks crazy now. And so they see a picture of the way Sammy Sosa looks. They start going in on jokes and cracking back and forth. And then Paperboy at the same time can't even buy some food because the dude over here giving him just nonsense over just buying some food, asking for a picture, telling him I hooked you up with some fries. I didn't want no fries. Like, the whole deal. It's a funny situation. So Darius gets some advice from Paperboy, basically like, look, just be smarter about it. Get the deal done. If you want this so bad, get it done and get the heck out of there. Stop dilly-dallying. He's like, Paperboy's talking about like, look, man, some people come in for an eighth and they want to have a conversation. And some people come in for a whole thing and they out in 2 seconds. He's like, it all depends. So they get off the phone. Next thing you know, he goes back inside, and right then and there, he's walking in, and all of a sudden the flash comes, and then freaking Darius is throwing up the X. He definitely not throwing up the Wakanda. It feels like he's throwing up the Malcolm X. That's what it seemed like more to me. And I was like, okay. And then he's in this weird room, and he's like, I don't really like pictures. He's like, oh, don't worry, it's for you. And he kind of hands him back the picture. And he's in this weird room. And he's like, what is this? He's like, obviously it's a gift shop. So this is kind of like a big homage to like Neverland Ranch in a way, but a low budget Neverland Ranch where a guy that kind of made it but then was forgotten about, where his house he kind of turned into a museum and he's got a gift shop inside, and there's like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, this is nice, and you know, he's like, well, you're the first guest to ever see it. He goes, make sure you Twitter and Blogspot about it. He's trying to get his hype for his place. He's just like, all right, and he's just kind of like all weirded out thing, and then he's like, oh, let me show you the best part. So then, this is where it really gets into some creepy stuff. He takes Darius into this room, and man, at this point, I don't know what the heck. They show this visual, and it looks like there's a body hanging. I'm thinking there's a body. I mean, it's got paper mache on the windows. It looks weird. He opens up this double door, takes him on, turns on the lights, and it's this weird worship room to basically his father. And what you come to find out is he was very abused as a child, and at this point, he's talked about his brother Benny, but you think he's kind of crazy at this point. So he mentions to Darius at some point that he has a brother Benny, and Benny is the one with the talent and plays the best piano with pain. And at this point, in my mind, I'm thinking he's just the same person, and this is just his alter ego he creates, Teddy and Benny, so he can escape reality. That's what I'm thinking. Darius is probably thinking the same thing. You haven't met Benny. You did see the piano playing, but you didn't see anybody. So he's telling Benny about this, and then he's in there, and they got this weird worship, like it's this mannequin, and he's got on his father's suit, and he's talking about, that's my dad, and he's a great dad, and he's like, what, really? He's the great dad? He's like, yeah, it's like Joe Jackson, and Tiger's dad, and, you know, like Serena and Venus Williams' father. I mean, he's naming and Marvin Gaye Sr., he's naming the most horrible parents that have done horrible things to their children, and forced them into lives that they really didn't want to go to, and he's just like, all right, and they just kind of awkwardly leave the room because Darius starts to push the envelope that he wants his piano. So he finally gets up to a room, back to that room where he was in before, and he's sitting there and he's looking for the paper, and they start having a conversation about fathers, and Darius is trying to connect with them about, you know, just abusive fathers and how he's gone through it and things like that. And he's like, you know, it's not your fault. And Teddy just enraged, no, and he freaks out and he gets all loud voice, and Darius kind of freaks out and you don't know what the hell is going on, and he's just kind of doing this freak out thing. And then Teddy kind of calms down and tells him, look, just put the thing in the elevator, I'll meet you down in the lobby and we'll take it out. And he's just like, all right. So now you add in a creepy elevator, and that just adds another element to the whole horror thing, because being in an elevator just doesn't go right. So Darius figures out a way, gets this thing in the elevator. He's going down to level 1, and what does it do? It goes right down to the basement. And at this point, it goes down to the basement, and the thing opens up and refuses to go up. So Darius is thinking this is his destiny, and he is just going for it. So he walks out, and he's just kind of looking around, and up wheelchairs this guy, and he's like, Benny! And so at this point, I'm thinking this is Teddy in the wheelchair, putting on some stuff and playing games with this man, and this is what he does for fun. And you can kind of see it in Darius' face. He's kind of thinking the same thing. He doesn't talk, and he basically starts writing stuff out, and he wants to kill Teddy. And you're like, okay, now this is getting really weird. He's like, what do you want me to do? He's like, I want you to go up to the attic and get my gun. He's like, all right, well, I'm going to go put this thing in the car first, in the truck, and then I'll come back and I'll get you your gun. He figures out a way to slip out of that situation. He goes up. The next thing you see, he's back on the phone with Paperboi, like freaking out, trying to get out of there, and he's taking the piano out. Lo and behold, someone has now put a car in front of the U-Haul and is blocking him in. And this is like Freak Out 1000. This is drop the piano, run. Just go. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. But Darius, man to his word, walks back in the house. This time he goes and grabs one of those pokers from the chimney, and he's trying to make sure he's all well protected. He's looking around. He walks in this room, and in the room, in some like crazy horror old school vintage style way that the killer is always waiting for you, they're watching old video of his father beating on Benny every single time he messes up on the piano, and he's just like, oh, I love this video. And you could just see Teddy is being real crazy, and he starts having a conversation with him, and Darius is about to walk out, and then he's telling him about his car in the way, and then all of a sudden he goes, well, I went up to the attic, and he pulls out the shotgun. And, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of nervous at this point. I was like, man, is Darius really gonna get it? I was trying to think, how could he get out of this situation? I really was nervous for him. I was like, man, they better not let Darius die in some crazy ass house thing. This is not what I want to see. So obviously I keep watching this thing because the story just gets wilder and wilder. So he takes him into the kind of the hallway, and he's like, look, he's like, why you gotta do this? He's like, look, man, I'm gonna do this because I'm going to make it look like you broke into our house and it broke into my house and tried to kill Benny. You're going to be my sacrifice. And Darius goes, there is no Benny. And he goes, exactly. That freaked you out. I mean, I was freaked out. I was like, oh, man, this is so bad. This is not going to be good. So he goes and throws him some handcuffs, and he's sitting in the chair and tells him to handcuff himself. So he starts handcuffing himself. So now his ankles are handcuffed, his hands are handcuffed, and I mean, he's done. He's done. The dude's got the shotgun on him. It's over. He's handcuffed. So Teddy goes and puts a shotgun down, and they go into like a classic evil lord horror thing, and they start monologuing. So he starts talking, and Darius sees like an opportunity and starts to connect with him, trying to connect with him on an emotional level about his father and how he had an abusive dad and how he understands stuff. And that's why I really feel like this is his nightmare, because it's like a manifestation of his own thing that he fears the most. It's kind of like something he loves, where it's like a Michael Jackson character, but it's also got the same emotional problems that he had, and that's why I feel like he can connect with them so well. So they're having this conversation, they're talking, he's trying to connect them. At the same time that all this is going on, like any classic horror or old school horror and villain trying to do something, ding, a noise happens in the background, the elevator opens up, and who comes out of nowhere? And there really is two people. It's Benny. And he's bloody, he wheels up, and I love the face of Teddy. Benny! He looks all freaked out. He's like, oh, you're not dead. And Benny grabs the shotgun. Bam! One of the chest, Teddy's down. Darius is freaking out. He's like, oh my God, all right. Oh, I'm so sorry for that, man. I didn't know what to mean. And you're thinking Benny's gonna let him out. He kind of wheels up to him. He's like, oh, okay. And Darius he's feeling good. He asks for the poker. He hands him the poker. And Benny takes the poker, puts the shotgun to his head, bam, blows his head off right in front of Darius. I mean, whoa. Talk about just wild. I mean, that is just crazy. That is an ultimate nightmare situation and scenario right there. I mean, to have this and then to watch him watch one kill the other and blow his brains out right afterwards. So I didn't know what was going to happen at that point. And then, obviously, Darius is smart. He calls the cops instantly because he's obviously handcuffed up. They show up. They start taking bodies after bodies. And you get this real sad shot of Darius at the end. He's just kind of in his U-Haul looking back. And the only thing he came for and he wanted was this free piano. And at the end, he still does not get this free piano. And he has to watch it be taken away from the police. I mean, just a freaking horrible situation. Also, one of the most crazy and unique stories. I fully believe this is a horror story in the mind of Darius that he sees and was visualizing, and this is like their nightmares played out in reality. Now, maybe it's their nightmares and it's not reality. We don't know, but I'm thinking it's their nightmares played out in reality. So that's how I'm seeing it. Taking it from the highest of highs of humor of last week to the creepiest and most awkward and make you feel uncomfortable in this week, Atlanta knows how to push your buttons and never let you think that you know what's coming next. I mean, I give them full credit for these things and what they're doing. Woo! Alright, so that episode was amazing. I can't wait to see if my theory's right or what the heck happens next week with Van and her episode. Let's go, guys. So, thanks for joining me. If you're watching Unsolved, I got last week's episode right here in 2 parts. So there is 2 parts. Check it out. And if you missed last week's episode of Barbershop Atlanta, got that right here. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Good night, Ted.